Maliketh's Black Blade ranks first in damage among colossal swords, and third among all Elden Ring weapons. Its raw power is impressive. This is Sword of Alexander. When you use it on any weapon, it gives a 15% buff to your skill damage. However, when you pair it with Maliketh's Black Blade, it only gives a 4% increase. Why? Maliketh's Black Blade is incredible, but its scaling is odd. I had to understand how it works to make it as best as it can be, and trust me, it gets better. In this video, I'll break down how Maliketh's Black Blade works, I'll showcase 3 different builds, each with their unique style, and I'll guide you through how to get everything needed. Let's dive in. We talk all the time about boss battles and strategic builds in Elden Ring, but there is another game that gives you that same excitement, packed with a lot of build crafting and over 30 bosses, Raid Shadow Legends. I've got an exclusive code that will get you a legendary champion for free. Use the promo code Monkey King, available only for new players through my link. Redeem it within 72 hours of registering. It is valid until October 31st. After that, it is gone, so don't miss out. Sun Wukong is a beast. He steals buffs from enemies, ignores 50% of their defense, deals extra damage, and can fully revive himself. You should grab him to get a head start as soon as possible. Plus, Raid's Asgard Divide event is live, where you can collect Norse-inspired champions like Loki, Thor, and Odin. It is one of their biggest events up to date. I highly recommend it. All you have to do is log in for 7 days to get Loki. Come find me in-game under this name, or join my clan, the Golden Order, and let's take on the Asgard Divide together. You can get Sun Wukong for free with the promo code Monkey King, but only if you download the game using my link in the description or the QR code on the screen. Thank you to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. We are taking a deep dive into one of Elden Ring's most unique weapons, Maliketh's Black Blade. Maliketh's Black Blade damage is split into 67% physical and 33% holy, making it ideal for strength faith-based builds. 46% of its damage comes from strength, 31% from faith, and 22% from dexterity. The requirements to wield it are high, demanding 34 strength, 12 dexterity, and 20 faith. However, by the time you get it, you should have enough levels, so that works out. A perfect weapon for the DLC in my opinion. Maliketh's Black Blade delivers devastating blows, whether through normal hits or its skill, Destined Death. Destined Death is a one-burst attack, but has 2 parts that happen back to back. Its first part deals 53% of the total damage, and its second deals 47% with a larger AoE. Now, this is where things take an interesting turn. This weapon has the weirdest scaling I have ever seen. Let me explain. My initial tests were done at a bare minimum requirement, a level 1 sword, and no buffs whatsoever. I was shocked to find that Sword of Alexander buffs the damage by only 4% instead of 15%. To my understanding, this was a flat buff of 15%. I tested other weapons at the same level, stats, and it's a 15%. There were some other weapons that had the same issue, like the Godslayer Great Sword, but still, it's not a 4%. So what is happening here? Next, I leveled up the sword to plus 10, and as you can see, this made me realize that this weapon's skill is completely different. Next, I decided to test this skill at maximum stats and a level 10 sword. I introduced different buffs to see how they affect the skill and if they are worth using. Sword of Alexander is still capped at 10%, holy buffs almost useless, multi-hit items, forget about it. Interestingly, Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength, the ones that people use the most, are both capped at the same percentage, 12%. I found a few ones like Bloodsucking Tear boosting damage by 14% and Rakshasa by 7%, kinda close to their original numbers. I am fairly certain that the weapon is hand-tuned and capped. Whatever buffs it scales with your stats and weapon level rather than the typical flat buffs. This is both good and bad news. The sword skill hits hard as is, but does not work well with buffs. However, one thing remains consistent: the weapon's hard-hitting regular attacks. Given the weapon's high raw damage, let's lean into that and focus on maximizing its basic attacks. So, by two-handing the sword, we will deal 38% more damage. It's heavy deals 33% more damage than its regular attacks, and its heavy can be charged for a whopping 40% damage increase. It is also consistently buffed with different items unlike the skill. Without any crazy buffs, this weapon's charge heavy hits console Radon like a truck. Now, let's break down the builds that you can optimize around this. First, the bonk build focuses on raw power. By spamming heavy attacks, you will deal massive damage with high poise and defense. Perfect for those who enjoy overpowering enemies with sheer force. Second, the deflection build is all about guard counters. With this build, you block enemy attacks and counter with Maliketh Black Blade to deal up to 80% more damage, making it a great choice for defensive playstyle. Third, if you're all about big damage numbers, this high damage build is for you. This setup maximizes raw damage, allowing you to deal over 170% more damage. This build is all about massive, consistent damage from heavy hits. High strength and faith will allow you to land devastating blows with high poise and defense. First, grab Maliketh's Black Blade and max it to plus 10. Offhand the Finger Seal to cast your buffs, which you can obtain from the Twin Maiden Husk in the Round Table Hold. For the armor, go for this combination that will allow you to reach 76 poise. The Veteran's Helmet, the Banished Knight Chest, the Bull Goat's Gauntlets, and the Scaled Greaves. For the talismans, go for the Two-Hand Talisman to increase damage by 15% when two-handing. It is found inside the highest structure in Temple Town Ruins. The Axe Talisman to increase charged attack by 10%. It is found in the Mistwood Ruins in Limgrave. Blade of Mercy to increase damage by 20% after a critical hit. It is found in the Scorched Ruins in the starting area of the DLC. And the Bull Goat Talisman to raise poise by 33%, pushing us to 101 poise. It is found in the back of the Dragon Barrow Cave. For the physic, go for the Stone Barb Crack tier, which increases our stance damage by 30%. This is perfect because this build will stagger bosses a lot. It is dropped by the avatar near the second minor Erdtree in Caelid. Pair it with the Opaline Heart tier to increase all damage negation types by 15%. It is dropped by the avatar north of 4th Farad in Caelid. For the spells, they will lead to better damage by big margins rather than leveling up other stats. Go for Golden Vow for a 15% increase and a 10% damage negation. It is found in the Corpse Stench Shack in Mount Gelmir. Pair it with the Flame Grant Me Strength to increase damage by 20%. It can be found behind 4th Gale. For the stats, spec to 50 Vigor, decent HP, 10 Mind to be able to cast the skill twice, 45 Endurance to medium roll with the heavy set, 56 Strength for high damage, and 12 Dexterity to meet the minimum requirement, and 60 Faith for high damage and buffs. Most of these choices for this build reflect my findings, including the stats, what works with the weapon, and everything else. From more defensive playstyle, this build focuses on blocking and countering for huge damage, utilizing the guard counters for stacking damage boosts. First, go for that Maliketh Black Blade and max it to plus 10. Again, offhand the Finger Seal to cast your buffs. For the armor, go for the Veteran set, which will give you a lot of poise and defense. This is important in case you miss deflections, so you can tank some hits. For the talismans, go for the Two-Hand Talisman to increase damage by 15%, the Axe Talisman to increase the charge attacks by 10%, the Blade of Mercy to increase damage by 20% after a crit, and the Bull Goat Talisman to raise poise by 33%. For the physic, the Deflecting Heart tier. Successful deflections will negate any status buildup, decrease stamina consumption, and give you up to 80% damage to guard counters. It lasts for 5 minutes and it's great for exploration and bosses. It is dropped from the first Furnace Golem you encounter at the start of the DLC, and pair it with the Opaline Heart tier to increase all damage negation by 15%. For the spells, go for Golden Vow for that 15% damage increase, and pair it with the Black Flames Protection. This increases your physical damage negation by 35% for 70 seconds. This will help you be more tanky in case you miss deflections and get hit. To obtain this one, you need both Haligtree secret medallions and to talk to Gideon about the secret medallion. For the stats, spec to 50 Vigor, decent HP, 10 Mind to be able to cast the skill twice, 48 Endurance to medium roll, 56 Strength for high damage, 12 Dex to meet the minimum requirement, and 60 Faith for high damage and buffs. If you're looking for pure damage output, this build sacrifices defense for maximum damage, perfect for melting bosses in a few hits. Grab Maliketh's Black Blade max it to plus 10. Offhand the Finger Seal to cast your buffs. Go for the Rakshasa set for that 8% damage boost. It is dropped by Rakshasa in the Eastern Nameless Mausoleum. For the talismans, go for the Two-Hand Talisman to increase damage by 15%, the Axe Talisman to increase charged attacks by 10%, Blade of Mercy to increase damage by 20% after a critical hit, and the Blessed Dew Talisman to restore 2 HP per second. It is found in the Divine Bridge side of Grace, guarded by a golem in Lane Dell. For the physic, go for the Bloodsucking Crack tier for a 20% to damage for 3 minutes. Defeat the Furnace Golem in the Ruins of Entei. Pair it with the Crimson Burst Crystal tier to heal 7 HP per second for 3 minutes. It can be found in this area. For the spells, go for Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength for that 15% and 20% damage increase. For the stats, 50 Vigor, decent HP, 10 Mind to cast the skill twice, 35 Endurance to medium roll, 60 Strength for high damage, 40 Dexterity for high damage as well. Going for 40 Dexterity here gives us more damage rather than 80 Strength, and 60 Faith for high damage. Maliketh's Black Blade is a beast in the right hands. Whether you like heavy hitting builds, blocking and countering, or just dealing raw damage, this weapon can do it all. Which of these builds will you try? Let me know in the comments, and if there is another weapon you want me to break down, let me know. Don't forget to use the link in the description or scan my QR code to download the game, and use the promo code Monkey King to get Sun Wukong for free.